Welcome to the Miller Report. Our guest today started his career as an anchor for KHSL in California. He has a strong background in sports reporting and so much more. In 1988, he has hosted Fox's, back up. In 1998, he has co-hosted Fox's morning show, Fox and Friends, and since 2022, he began hosting, which we all love, One Nation with Brian Kilmeade. So let's welcome Brian to the Miller Report. Thank you so much for doing this, Brian. Thank you. People love your show, and I'm so happy that you're on ours today.
No, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
During this election year, I have to ask you, I watch so much of your shows, and as I said, I'm a huge fan, and you're doing so wonderful, but you have so much news to cover. Like, how do you go about selecting which stories to cover?
Well, I mean, there's a few things with radio. It's a collaboration with two other people, with Allison, Eric, and Pete. I think three other people. And then with TV, it's a bunch of producers producing through the night. They come up with some of the talking points, and then the guests are booked differently. It's pretty obvious what the first two are. The third one is a point of interest that you usually can understand what the audience wants and what would be a little different. So you also got to worry, not so much with Fox and Friends, but you don't want to do the same stories every hour on the channel. I feel the same way with the radio show. You don't want to do the same stories. And it's kind of, I'm in New York, but I have a national sense. This is a national show. So I make sure to mix in New York stories with the national stories. But it's pretty obvious what the number one story is now, 2024, and everything goes underneath it.
Yeah. Do you get much of a choice, or they tell you what you have to do?
Oh, they have input. Absolutely have input. But you got other hosts and executive producers. You have vice president of morning TV weighing in. You have line producers weighing in. You have the overnight people collecting data. So it's really a joint effort. And you could also switch on the fly. Like those rundowns change every 15 minutes.
Got it. So I'm sure you feel this more than anybody that in news today, in my family, friends, wherever I am, everybody's divided. People, they actually tell me to change my channel when I'm listening to you sometimes. We're so divided and nobody trusts the news. When you're covering a story, like what do you do to get people to trust what you're saying? Is there any mechanism that you have? How do you get people to trust the news?
I don't know. You can only worry about your job and what you do and notice what everyone's doing. I flip around the channels all the time and you can see the biases. I mean, if you watch this Sunday, I've never seen it. And of all this, I watch Sunday shows.
Yeah,
it gets me ready for the whole week. And I always like to flip channels and find out what everyone's thinking and saying. So I've never seen the Sunday shows like this. Clearly, the internal polls that they're being privy to show Trump moving up.
Right.
And there's such outrage and disdain because people aren't listening to them when they say Trump was unworthy and not going to be successful and could never win a general election. They were wrong in 2016, never admitted it. He got more votes than anyone else in 2020. Maybe he should have admitted that he lost. And then 2024 comes up and he's starting to win again. And I never saw Martha Raddatz and Kristen Welker and Margaret Brennan through their questions show a bias. And when that happens, you lose 50% of your audience. You could ask certain questions, but let people answer. And then just ask the people just as tough questions who believe something different or running for the other party.
I think you do a good job on that. I was listening to you this weekend. You really do. I mean, so I guess that comes with experience. Maybe because of sports. You couldn't root for one.
Yeah.
Your background.
Yeah, people are used to opinions. Everyone's got an opinion.
Everyone's got an opinion.
What the Giants are doing wrong, what the Jets are doing wrong. What the men's soccer team is doing wrong. Everyone's got an opinion, and not saying anyone's wrong. But when it comes to news and what happened, that's the issue that makes it tough with social media. I mean, you have a situation with FEMA that they said that on social media it says that don't let FEMA come on your property because they'll confiscate it. I don't know what to tell people if they believe that, but evidently people did believe it, so they weren't letting people on their property. So that's really not the media. That's social media, which is a bulletin board. That's a cork board. Anyone could go up there and put an index card on a cork board and says, this is what I believe.
Brian, tell us what your opinion about the 60-minute debacle.
It's even getting worse. You could take an answer and make it shorter and and go under the guise of, hey, I can't air the whole thing. Well, you could air the whole thing because Trump didn't show up. And you just spent the whole time ripping him for that. But I wouldn't have shown up either with his experience with this. And then it turns out she answers a question. In the promo, it's a confusing answer. But in the final product, it's a different answer. So they took an answer from a different question and let it answer her first question and make it seem crisp and concise. And to me, there should be hell to pay for that. At the same time, they did the same thing with Speaker Johnson and Margaret Brennan. On Sunday, I texted him. I said, good job. He said, well, it would have been a lot better if they aired my whole interview.
Insane.
I said, what do you mean? He said that they cut out 16 minutes of his interview.
Brian.
And they didn't air it. So he said it would happen to be the stuff that I really was aggressively going back on her at. He goes, I will never do the show again unless it's live.
Do you remember 60 Minutes used to be the Bible of information? I don't know what's happened.
Well, it makes me wonder how many other shows, how many other people got the same treatment. We just didn't realize it.
Let's move on to world events, which you're an expert and you talk about all the time. Do you really think that overthrowing the Iranian government is the only way to achieving peace out there? Like, what's the solution?
I don't say then overthrow. Number one, it's Israel's choice to make, and I think we should help. But don't overthrow him. But if the guy is trying to kill you with gangsters in Hamas and gangsters in Lebanon, in Gaza and in Lebanon, and then you send 180 rockets to kill you, that puts the Grand Ayatollah on a wanted list in Israel. So if they happen to kill the leader and the president, it's up to them to figure out who should lead their country. But they basically are holding the Iranian people hostage. And they're very bright, well-educated people. They never were anti-Israel until the ayatollah took over in 1979. They are the main problem in the Middle East. In a little while, they're going to have a missile defense system from Russia, and they're going to have a mutual defense agreement with Russia and China, and then that might pull them off the board. There's a window of opportunity to destroy our number one nemesis in the Middle East, whose main goal is to destroy Israel, who happens to be our chief ally. If they want to take out that government, go ahead and let them sort it out.
You think Trump will do that?
Well, if they keep trying to kill him, I don't think he's going to have a choice.
Yeah, I said
he's going to let him to sell $200 billion worth of oil, and that'll cause another reaction. So I hope Netanyahu takes care of things.
Me too. Let's move on to the election here. Are you concerned that there might be any foreign influence in our election process here? What's your think?
Well, it's already happening in the media. You know, you see these Columbia protests. You see the fomenting civil unrest in 2020. They try to find hot issues in America and try to divide us further. And we're naive enough to believe this stuff. Hopefully, we'll do a better job controlling it. They've already hacked into Trump's campaign. They've already supplied top secret intelligence, of course, through Roger Stone. What else is new? They've gone through his email, and they provided that to the New York Times and other outlets. They are threatening, and their threats are so
overt,
so legitimate that Trump but they believe that now Trump is switching planes and vehicles and multiple SUV lines to throw off would-be assassins. So they're already affecting the election. Trump can't go and golf. That affects him personally. And they told him he's got to limit the number of live events. In Wisconsin, he was supposed to do a live events with 50,000 people. Instead, he ends up with 12 indoors. They're already affecting the election.
What about Madison Square Garden? You think he's going to turn this state?
No, but I think he's going to get very close. And I think that he's going to sell out quickly. And I think that's something he always wanted to do. If I was him, and I've had 12 years of public life in politics, and I'm about to run my last campaign, and you're born in New York, grow up in Queens, and you work in Manhattan, and you could play and sell out Madison Square Garden, why wouldn't you? If you're James Carville, you think it's because you want to emulate Nazi Germany, Hitler sympathizers as they were in 1939, which is so ridiculous and irresponsible. I don't care how much he was drinking. You should not talk like that. And number two is you could say he's like Hitler sympathizers or like Billy Joel, one or the other.
I'll go Billy Joel, New
or
York, New York.
Sebastian.
So let's stay on New York for a minute, Brian. I mean, what's going on with this mayor? Are we going to weather this storm? Who's running the city?
Well, Paul Morrow told us today that there are superseding indictments coming up. And the superseding indictments might mean that if it's a FARA, which means he's an agent, they're accusing him of being an agent of a foreign government, that might force the governor's hand to remove him. At which time we're going to be stuck with that left-wing lunatic, Jumaane Williams, who, among his great statements, he wants to fund the police. So
that's just for 90 days.
Yeah, 80 days of hell.
And then who are you predicting is going to be the next mayor?
John Catsimatidis.
No, he's
That's
not.
what I think.
We all wish, but let's say that doesn't happen. Who's next on your list?
I don't know. I would love to see. We had Phil Levine on today, a multimillionaire who was Miami's mayor.
Wow.
Who was mentored by Bill Clinton. And he was able to use his business experience to do a great job in Miami. He wrote a column in the New York Post. And I thought it made a lot of sense. He says, if it's not Bloomberg, get somebody like Bloomberg, right, who has systems and contacts and people that you can trust that want to give back. And also make sure you hire the right police chief. Because if it wasn't for Ray Kelly, Bloomberg is not successful.
Right.
And Ray Kelly was the best. And, Bernie Kerik did a good job with Rudy Giuliani. And Rudy Giuliani did a fantastic job as mayor, but he also had great police chiefs too, and Bill Bratton was another. Mm-hmm. So you have to have law enforcement that you trust, right, and you got to give them freedom to enforce the law, and you got to put massive pressure on the city council to reform and start getting public sentiment in your direction.
I think you should run, Brian.
I got to live in the city first. I don't totally think I want to do that.
Oh, we could find you an apartment.
All right. Yeah, that's what they always say.
Last question, because I know we're short on time here. If you could conduct any interview in the world with two world figures, who would they be?
If I can conduct an interview?
Yeah. Two world figures. Who would they be?
I mean, I'm somebody that's really a big fan of Zelensky. I love this new leader of Italy. Who would be fantastic. And I love this new president of Argentina and El Salvador. So any of those guys that you can line up, I'll do it.
Great answer, Brian. You're amazing. Thank you so much. This was short. It was concise. You got right to it. Now I know why you're so successful. And thank you for coming on the Miller Report. I hope to see you soon.
And I'm glad to be on the Miller Report. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Brian. Bye.